on the Gaia continent, monsters have been randomly disappearing for several years now. At first, people thought they were being extinguished, but it turns out they were actually being moved to another dimension. And that's exactly what a particular mage has been hoping to study for himself. This mage has been studying the disappearance of these monsters for a long time now. Even though he still has no idea why or how they get teleported, he's more focused on how he can get the power for himself. With all the research he managed to gather, he set up a magic circle in a dungeon known as the Great Labyrinth. Now, finally, he can watch his work come to life as he sets the coordinates and builds a mana connection. Then, he steps on a magic circle to finally move over to the new dimension. A bright light shines around him as the magic begins to take effect. The aura produced by the spell is bright enough to cover a whole area. And then, all at once, everything stops. The mage notices that the flow of air and temperature of the area have changed. Except it's not because he's in a new dimension. He's just outside the dungeon. Or to be more specific, it was the dungeon that got teleported over to another dimension, leaving him in a hole where he was before. Over in a different dimension, a young man stares at an interdimensional portal that just opened up in his attic. He can only wonder what in the world is going on. His day was pretty normal up until a few seconds ago. Earlier that day, during his day job, Kong Jinhyuk admires the youthful college students around him. Watching them reminds him of when he once had a passion that he could focus on. Right now, though, a D-rank hunter like him doesn't have that kind of luxury. His partner comes up and asks why he's standing around in a daze when there's work to do. They need to hurry up with their work since they aren't even halfway done yet. After a hard day of work, the two men rest in their van. But Jinhyuk is wearing surprisingly light clothing despite the cold weather. That's because he's a hunter, and one of the perks of being a hunter is having the ability to endure hot and cold temperatures. It's such a basic thing that it even applies to D ranks as well, meaning that Jinhyuk can save up on paying for any heating in his house. Hunters also have many other amazing perks. But despite that, Jinhyuk works part-time as a laborer. That's because he has no money, and since all the guilds in the area are monopolizing all the hunter jobs, there's nothing he can do about it. It's all because of some sneaky serial killer who's been going around killing hunters from the top guilds. Because they haven't been able to catch the lunatic, the guilds have been taking out their frustration by sweeping up all the hunter jobs in the area. Today, however, seems to be Jinhyuk's lucky day. A loud sound, followed by screaming, comes from the school area. This is his opportunity. Chaos like that can only mean there are monsters nearby. Taking out just a few of them could set him up with enough money to make it through a whole year. Those dreams are shattered as soon as they show up. A man rushes in and shoves Jinhyuk back, while several other hunters appear on the scene. Titan, the guild in charge of the area, is already there, and they've taken over the situation in an instant. Doyen, the deputy guild master, orders him to get lost before he's actually forced to kill him. The difference between him, a mere D rank, and an A rank hunter from a major guild is just too wide for him to ever cross. There is nothing he could do to change the situation. With his dreams shattered, he moves on to his next part-time job in hopes that it will at least bring in some money. Then, he heads home, filled with a strong sense of defeat. Suddenly, a sound from deeper in his apartment catches his attention. He goes to investigate and comes face to face with some sort of portal to another world, filled with monsters. They can't seem to see him, but he can pass through just fine without any weird reactions to his body. This could be just the opportunity he was looking for. He heads downstairs to gather his thoughts. This is definitely a dungeon that has only existed as a concept up until now. If it was anywhere else, he would have been happier, but it just had to appear in his attic. The most logical step would be to report this incident to the association, but if he did that, they would kick him out of his own home under the pretense of on-site investigation. So, the only option that looked good was to take it all for himself. The first thing he needed to confirm was if the monsters could cross over to his side of the portal. They couldn't see him, at least, which was a good thing, since with his abilities, he could only take on 2 or 3 goblins at most. If more monsters were to come through at once, he would have no chance of taking them down. With nothing left to lose, he takes a deep breath and steps through the portal, popping out on the first floor of a dungeon maze. He barely has time to look around before a goblin rushes at him from his left. He narrowly evades a stick to his face and dodges back into his attic. The goblin looks around confused and swings at the air. It seems like they really can't see the portal after all, and that means they can't come over to his side either. Now that he knows there's no reason to be scared, he equips a baseball bat. He jumps back in through the portal to take the goblin head on. He swings the bat into the goblin's cheek, sending the creature flying. Before it can recover, he follows up with a stab to its chest. With the goblin defeated, he raises his bat and swings it down on its face, defeating it instantly. This was the first time he had ever hunted monsters alone. Since he didn't have to share experience points with anyone else, they were all his for the taking. With the goblin taken out, his level, which hadn't risen in 3 years, went up immediately. The goblin corpse was also his for the taking, and it could get him up to 3 million won if he sold it in the right places. The next day, he takes it to a hunter's market and tries to sell it off to a merchant. After taking a closer look at the corpse, the merchant can tell that our boy does not have a lot of experience in dungeons. This is because the way he handled the goblin significantly reduced the market value. Despite that, he still managed to get a price of over 3 million won, just like he hoped for. All he needed to do was provide the name of the area where he hunted down the goblin, and he would get the payment immediately. That was something Jinhyuk could not tell anyone. If someone found out about the dungeon in his attic, his profits could go down the drain. While he's trying to figure out a way to get out of the situation he'd found himself in, a group of hunters from the Black Dragon Guild come barging into the area like a pack of hyenas. Someone stole a kill from their territory, and they are not happy about it. At first, they think it's Jinhyuk and step up to confront him. However, the merchant redirects their attention to a blonde-haired hunter who's oblivious to the situation. The hunters step up to confront him and beat him up till he can barely move. He snuck into their territory and try to hunt monsters there without permission. For all they know, he could be the serial killer they've been looking for. With the man barely able to talk, they drag him out of the building to continue their interrogation. That man, who was beaten to a pulp, could have easily been Jinhyuk. Seeing a scene like that, and knowing that he won't be able to lie about where he got the goblin from, he changes his mind about selling there. He needs to find another way to sell his loot without having to deal with the thugs from bigger guilds if he didn't want his life to be at stake. As soon as Jinhyuk gets back home, he decides to dive back into the dungeon and work on getting stronger. Before he heads in, he has to arm himself with enough equipment to be able to survive a trip into such a dangerous place. He arms himself with a teleportation stone. This stone will allow him to teleport out of danger and back to his apartment. He also takes a monster tracking compass. It reveals any monsters around him within a 50-meter radius. Armed with these items, along with his trusty baseball bat, he steps into the dungeon for a round of leveling up. He goes on a killing spree, with each kill raising his level by 1. True to its name, the Goblin Labyrinth is filled with goblins. For someone with a low level like him, this is the perfect hunting ground to use and grow stronger. After a long day of hunting, his inventory capacity is almost full. He has just enough space for one more goblin. Since it's the last one, he would prefer if it was a large one that would bring in more money. The compass shows a goblin approaching his location, which is perfect timing. All he has to do is hide and ambush it before it sees him. He hides around the corner and waits for just the right moment before swinging his bat right at the goblin's face. Except it isn't a goblin. He just hit a remarkably short man. The man shouts at him in a strange language that he can't understand. Jinhyuk hurriedly bows to apologize, which seems to calm the man down enough. He pulls out 2 necklaces from a bag and hands one to Jinhyuk. As soon as he puts it on, he can suddenly understand what the man is saying. He realizes 2 things. First, this man is very angry at him, which is fair considering that he just smashed a bat into his face. Secondly, this man isn't a man. He's a dwarf, a mythical race that he's only heard about in fantasy novels. The angry dwarf continues to yell at him while he helps to pick up the items that got scattered around. Everything he picked up seemed to be really high quality, but he barely got any time to admire them while being yelled at. The dwarf notices his bat and picks it up. He demands to know where Jinhyuk got it from, which confuses the young man. There's nothing special about it, but the dwarf seems very determined to know. It's just an ordinary aluminum baseball bat, but the dwarf seems to think it's made up of some kind of highly precious metal named orichalcum. This ordinary bat is so valuable to the dwarf that he believes no amount of money would be able to buy it. He offers Jinhyuk a trade of some of his rare items in exchange for the bat. Seeing no reason to refuse, he follows the dwarf back to his workshop. The dwarf takes the bat deeper into his workshop while Jinhyuk looks around the place. He glances at the weapons laid around the workshop and wonders which one he should pick. But the dwarf returns soon after with his new and improved baseball bat. For some reason, it's shining a bright red color and glowing slightly. Jinhyuk wonders if this is really his bat after all, but the dwarf confirms that that's just one of the traits of orichalcum. It starts out as a soft and weak metal, but then it turns into a strong and durable material the more you enchant it. That word catches our boy's eye. It seems that somehow the dwarf had enchanted his weapon. An enchanted item is a very rare item that only drops from very rare high-level monsters of A grade and above. Just testing out a few swings with the new bat confirms that it feels completely different from what he remembers. It's almost impossible to believe that something as strong as this could be artificially created. This dwarf, as well as this whole dungeon, really could be the lucky break that he's been searching for this entire time. He checks the stats in a status menu. The bat is now a legendary baseball bat with S-grade durability and automatic retrieval. His once common aluminum bat has become a rare and legendary item. If he could sell the item, he would make a jackpot, but the bat is already bound to him, so he can't sell anymore. The dwarf added the automatic retrieval enchantment to the bat, meaning that no one other than him would ever be able to use it. In the end, he can't make any money from it, but it's still a legendary item nonetheless. And even then, there are still other ways to make money. He has an inventory full of goblin corpses that he can sell for a profit. The only problem is there's nowhere to sell them without getting unwanted attention from guilds. The only other option is the Hunter Industries black market. They don't ask questions and they deal with corpses efficiently. On top of that, it's really easy to get in touch with them. They always hand out business cards to lower level hunters who need money, which means he already has a lot of these cards to use. He heads home and uses a card to find the address of one of these black markets. The business card looks incredibly shady, but right now he doesn't have any other choice. While he's searching around for any sign that this place exists, a man calls down to him from above. His name is Deputy Cho Hyung-il, and he invites Jin Hyuk to his office to meet their boss. He meets with Lee Jun-cheol, who's a loan shark currently disguised as a loan agent who also trades monster corpses on the black market. They ask to inspect the corpses first before discussing payment, and Jin Hyuk brings them out to show. The two are shocked by the number of corpses Jin Hyuk brings out from his inventory. Despite the fact that Jin Hyuk is clearly just a newbie, he managed to get up to 20 goblin corpses. They are all in incredible condition, too. The heads are bashed up from baseball bat injuries, but other than that, they look perfect. So perfect, in fact, that Deputy Cho can't hide how excited he is to receive them. The three men negotiate prices, but they are interrupted. Black market merchants run in to announce that a monster has shown up in the area. There's a rare chance that a monster's corpse can attract monsters, and it seems laying out 20 fresh goblin corpses on the ground was more than enough to send out a beacon. What's worse, the monsters that had appeared were two orcs. They were way out of Jin Hyuk's league at the moment. At this rate, the only thing he could do to save himself was to take the monster corpses and escape as fast as he could. However, it was already too late. The first monster had made it to them and looked ready to tear them apart. Since Jin Hyuk was the only hunter around, he was the only person strong enough to take them on. That doesn't mean he could take them on, though. The orc charges at him with its battle axe. He dodges the first swing, but the second swing comes down straight for his head. At such a close distance, there was no way for him to avoid it. It seemed like this was the end for him. He was about to die pathetically. That's until his newly enchanted bat summons itself from his inventory. It blocks the attack just before it can connect. The parry was so strong, it sent the orc flying back for a second. This seems to be another one of its enchantments, the presence detection effect. If that was the case with this new bat of his, then he just might stand a chance. The orc charges in again, but Jin Hyuk is more confident and ready this time. He grips the bat and aims downward, right at the orc's knee, causing it to lose balance. Then, with the monster disoriented, he launches another attack at its face, cracking its neck and killing it instantly. Just killing a single orc caused his level to jump from 24 to 36 in one quick spike. He doesn't have any time to celebrate. The second orc finds them and rushes at him. This time, though, he's ready. He dodges the attack, then runs up behind it and smashes his bat into the orc's back, before repositioning and sending one last attack straight to its head, also killing it instantly. With that, he managed to easily kill two orcs in a matter of seconds. That shows just how powerful this enchanted weapon really is. Now that the commotion is over, he smugly asks the men to restart negotiations and add the corpses of the two dead orcs to their deal. That day, he went home with a chip on his shoulder. Somehow he had managed to convince the men to give him 15% more than the market price. The amount of money in his bank account almost felt like a dream. Now that he had finally taken care of those goblin corpses, all he had to do was focus on hunting. Because he saved the black market dealer and his crew, they decided to continue doing business with him, which means that he'll never have to worry about where to sell the corpses again. That's because the dealer probably realized that Jin Hyuk isn't just a low-level thief who's selling stolen corpses. He's actually a high-level hunter that's strong enough to take down 2 orcs with little effort. But even with his enchanted bat and his newfound strength, there was no way his current equipment would let him hunt down higher-grade monsters. There was only one option left for him, to upgrade. And if he plays his cards right, he might even get some equipment for free. The next day, he had bought a crate full of beer cans and alcohol for the dwarf. Since he liked aluminum so much, this was like a gold mine to him. The dwarf couldn't believe that everything in the crate was filled with orichalcum. He tried the beer but spat it out immediately. The taste was horrible. To calm him down from another shouting match, Jin Hyuk passed him some soju instead. This one is different, and the taste is enough to satisfy the dwarf for now, but it's not enough. There could be something more to give it the kick he's looking for. Since the opportunity had come up, the dwarf made a request to Jin Hyuk. He needs to have something mined out for him. He sends Jin Hyuk on a quest to mine out some mithril, but what does or have to do with alcohol? Well, Jin Hyuk wanted some free gear, so it's not like he had any choice of what he had to do to get it. If this was the best way to get the gear, then so be it. He journeyed further into the labyrinth and emerged at a clearing in a forest. This place is much larger than he thought. A system menu pops up in front of him, telling him that he had made it to the 2nd level of the labyrinth. Now he had the opportunity to record his location as a warp point. He had no idea what a warp point was, but he accepted the option regardless. That causes a gate to open up in front of him. This portal allows him to travel between the 1st and 2nd floors easily, just like a video game. With that setup, he journeyed deeper into the labyrinth to find the mithril where he'd been sent to get. The 2nd floor was called Dogs and Skeletons, and just like the 1st floor with goblins, this floor was filled with wild monster dogs jumping out at him. These dogs were way weaker than the orcs he fought just a few days ago, meaning that they were all free experience points for him. He readies his bat and charges headfirst into a pack of dogs aiming for him. By the end of the fight, he had killed 25 orcs, and he gathered their corpses. Going by the market value, these corpses should net him a nice 200 million won. But he can't let the excitement of all the money get to his head. He still had a mission to mine some mithril ore. He journeys deeper into the dungeon and is confronted by skeletons. This floor was called Dogs and Skeletons after all. Skeletons are an annoying set of monsters. Their bodies can't be sold for money, and the only way to defeat them is to break their core. That makes this fight all the more painful to sit through, especially since there are a lot of them coming at him. But with his current skills and level, there is no way he wouldn't be able to take them out. By the end of the fight, he's tired and realizes that the dwarf probably sent him here because he didn't want to have to deal with these annoying monsters himself. Still, there's one good thing to come out of this. Killing these skeletons had raised his level to 100, which means that he'll now be able to change classes. His class will be automatically chosen based on his previous actions. With how much fighting he'd been doing recently, he would definitely become some sort of berserker or a warrior. Instead, the system deems him to be a cleric. He carries on and manages to gather the mithril where the dwarf wanted. That's surprising, since the dwarf didn't expect Jin Hyuk to make it out of that experience alive. He may be alive, but he's exhausted from all the fighting he had to go through. Well, even with that, it's not like he came out from the encounter completely empty-handed. He managed to swipe some mithril ore for himself, since it looked expensive. Then he gave the rest to the dwarf. Since he managed to get the ore, the dwarf agrees to use some of it to make anything he wants. Since he already had a great weapon, the next thing he needed was some kind of armor to withstand heavy attacks from monsters, preferably something lightweight that should be easy to hide. The dwarf agrees and gets to work immediately. The process takes much longer than Jin Hyuk can wait, so he goes back home to take a nap for a few hours. He wakes up half a dozen hours later and goes back to the workshop to check on the dwarf's progress. By then, he's done making the armor, and he seems satisfied with it. It's mithril chainmail armor that should easily fit under his shirt and hoodie. He tries it on, and without warning, the dwarf attacks him with a hammer to his chest. There's no better way to explain something than with a practical. After all, that attack would normally have broken his ribs at least. But thanks to the armor, he barely felt anything. With armor as strong as this, as well as his legendary baseball bat, his combat abilities had skyrocketed. Meeting this dwarf was definitely the stroke of luck he needed to turn his life around. That wasn't all he had prepared, however. Next, the dwarf brings a large barrel to give him. It's the soju he had brought earlier. Jin Hyuk goes back to his apartment and tries it out for himself. The dwarf was right. Just storing the soju in a barrel made out of mithril or turned it into an entirely different drink. Something this amazing gave him a great idea. He calls the black market dealer again and promises him another deal. This time, he's selling cobalt corpses and fine quality liquor. At another part of town, the Titan Guild has just concluded their training by some newly opened gates. They should be done, but a sudden new wave of lizard men flood through the gates. It seems like it's an anomaly gate, and 3 times more enemies pour out than they have just defeated. One of the guild members suggests calling for help from another guild, but Doyen, the deputy guild master, can't let his pride go by calling others for help. He urges his subordinates to hold their ground and fight. Jinhyuk, on the other hand, is not having nearly as hard of a time. He just officially got his class registered as a cleric, and on top of that, he was promoted from D rank to C rank. Clerics are a rare class of healers, and it's well known that top guilds usually seek them out. That means he might now be able to be recruited by a guild. Suddenly, a bloodied and beaten up hunter barges through the doors, looking for a cleric. Jinhyuk raises his hand and volunteers as a cleric, and the man takes him back to the site where the Titan Guild members are taking on the hordes of lizard men. He's told to stand in the back line and heal as many people as he can with the other clerics. He wants to help in other ways, but the guild member assures him that all he has to do is stand in the back and heal them, and then he'll get paid accordingly when the fighting is done. The healers being in the area is enough to support the guild members and give them a second wind to keep fighting on. But the waves are just too much for them to handle, and one of the other clerics suggests calling in a supporting guild to help take them out faster. At this rate, they'll all be wiped out if they don't do something. Just as he's thinking on what to do next, he feels a hostile presence behind him. His bat had just saved him from a fatal strike by one of the lizard men. It somehow got past all the hunters and was trying to take out the healers, starting with him. That means that the back ranks of their defense have been breached. There's only clerics at the back line. If these monsters got through them, they'd wipe out the guild members in an instant. Left with no other choice, Jinhyuk grips his bat and swings at the lizard man that attacked him, sending him flying with a single attack. He informs the other clerics that there's been a breach. He says he's the only one that'll be able to block them. They got this far behind them thanks to a concealment technique, and now they're trying to ambush them from behind. Jinhyuk instructs the clerics to focus on healing for now and to leave the lizard men to him. It would be difficult, but he was the only one that could stop them. The other clerics are worried about him, since they think he's just an ordinary healer like them. Jinhyuk, on the other hand, rushes in to take them head on, telling them not to worry about him. He wouldn't be saying these kinds of things if he wasn't at least a bit confident in his abilities, of course. Even though he said all that, he was still nervous about the whole thing. But in the end, he actually managed to hold his ground against the rampaging monsters. One of them manages to get past him while his guard is down and heads straight for one of the other clerics. Jinhyuk chases after it, then leaps off the ground and manages to stop it from attacking one of the clerics just in time. His rushed attack leaves him open to a stab from behind, but thanks to the dwarf's chain armor, it barely affects him. The monster is surprised that their attack didn't work, and Jinhyuk takes that opportunity to counter with a bat swing to his face. Somehow, he's actually holding them off by himself. Thanks to him, they can focus on healing without worrying about any sneak attacks. But that's not the only thing going in their favor. The lizard men freeze as a new fighter enters the battle. Suddenly, a strong man joins in and takes out one of the monsters with a single hit. This newcomer is Seo Sango, the guild master of the Titan Guild. He acknowledges Jinhyuk and asks if he was the one that took out all the monsters in the area. The C-rank hunter admits that he was the one who took out the monsters, but he's more confused about who this new powerful man was. The clerics are surprised that he doesn't know the S-rank hunter Sango. He's so powerful that, thanks to him being there, it looked like the battle was about to come to an end. With no time to waste, he rushes off to join his subordinates in battle, but not before promising to properly reward Jinhyuk for his assistance later. Just at a glance, it's obvious to anyone, including Jinhyuk, that S-rank hunters were in an entire league of their own. When he's around, he becomes the real monster in the battle. He lands right in the middle of the fight, and his presence immediately lightens everyone's spirits. All except Doyen, who seems annoyed that the guild master showed up. There is nothing wrong with a fellow guild member coming in to give support, but Doyen's pride wouldn't let him accept that. Sango immediately takes charge of the situation. He passes orders to the fighting hunters. Immediately, he commands the attention of everyone around him. With that done, he doesn't wait for the guild members to clear the area. He launches a powerful attack on the ground. This creates a shock wave that sends all the lizard men flying. His single strike was enough to take out many of them. In a matter of minutes, with Sango's help, all the monsters are easily taken out. Now that he was sure his guild members were safe, he takes Doyen by the jacket. He wanted to reprimand him. What were you thinking when you decided to put your life and the lives of your subordinates at risk by taking on the monsters alone? He asked. Doyen claims that he just wanted to protect the guild's reputation. But Sango knows the truth. Doyen just wanted to protect his own pride. The two have a short stare-off. Then, one of the guild members reminds Sango that he needs to dismiss the clerics who helped to clear the scene. The guild master calms himself down and goes over to address the hunters. He thanks them personally, especially Jinhyuk, who is the main reason so many people made it out alive. As a token of gratitude, he offers to allow him to enter the guild immediately without having to go through a registration process. That's something that Doyen cannot accept. He quickly comes in to put down Jinhyuk as a mere Durank who only got lucky. Sango, on the other hand, does not hesitate to remind him that this former Durank saved so many lives that would have been lost if it wasn't for his stubbornness. Then, he forces Doyen to apologize to Jinhyuk, which is already a big blow to the deputy guildmaster's pride. Even with that, Jinhyuk respectfully declines the offer. He doesn't want to be part of any guild that allows people like Doyen to have any type of authority. That's the last straw, and Doyen rushes at him with an enhanced punch. But a defensive bat straight to his stomach is enough to stop him in his tracks. The hit is enough to knock Doyen out cold immediately. The occasion is such a noticeable moment that it appears in a news article the next day. The higher-ups of the Titan Guild can't stand what happened to Doyen. Not only was he publicly embarrassed by a mere C rank, he was also demoted from his authority as a deputy guildmaster. They demand that the C rank appear before them to explain himself. Sango, on the other hand, doesn't agree with that. Not only did Doyen risk the lives of multiple guild members for the sake of his pride, he also attempted to attack someone who fought for their guild. That's more than enough reason for him to be demoted. That manages to shut down the people gathered. With nothing else to say to the men, he sends them on their way. The guild master's mind wandered back to the extraordinary C rank he saw the other day. Before he grows any stronger, he has to get Kong Jinhyuk to join his guild, no matter what. The man in question lounged lazily in his apartment, enjoying a drink while looking through his expenses. Since he made a lot of money from hunting, he had spent more than he usually would, which put the expenses at an absurd high. If he knew things were going to turn out this way, then he would have accepted the extra pay that the Titan Guild was offering him. At the end of the day, though, it doesn't matter since he has a much better way to earn money. After some much-needed relaxation, he headed back into the dungeon to collect more monster corpses. Hunting the same old monsters isn't enough for him anymore. Now that he had gotten stronger, he was going to need some stronger opponents. He walked deeper into the second floor than he usually would and found himself facing off against a small army of orcs. One of them tries to attack him from behind, but he successfully sidesteps the attack before retaliating with an attack of his own. The hit defeats the orc immediately, right as several others swarm around him through the hall. Just a few days ago, he would have been dead on the spot, but thanks to his new equipment, he's able to defeat all of them with ease. By the end, he counts up a total of 20 orc corpses, which should net him enough money to not have to worry about anything for a whole year. Since he still had a lot of stamina left, he decided to head a little deeper into the dungeon and found himself entering the third floor, named as the Temple Guardian's Labyrinth. At first glance, there don't seem to be any monsters in the area, but the sense of calm is almost immediately broken by a large tremor shaking the ground. A giant hand bursts out from beneath him, and Jinhyuk only barely manages to move out of the way. The hand belongs to a stone golem, which is an artificial monster built for mana. Its attacks are too fast for him to dodge, and they're so powerful that even when he blocks it, he still gets pushed back by a large amount. That leaves him with very little option but to try his best and fight back. The golem seems to be incredibly strong, but it lacks the intelligence to make use of that strength. Jinhyuk takes advantage of this and manages to land an attack on its head, shattering it to pieces and causing the creature to fall. But it doesn't take much time for it to start reforming once again. Jinhyuk forgot a crucial point about the golem. It can only be defeated by completely breaking its core. Realizing this, he tries to dodge back and create some distance to re-strategize. But the monster manages to regenerate its hand fast enough to catch him before he can escape. There weren't many ways he could escape this trap. Then, suddenly, an arrow flew in and struck the golem in its chest. Jinhyuk sees the opportunity and follows up with a sharp jab from his bat, breaking the golem's core and defeating it once and for all. He managed to make it out of that situation alive, thanks to the random stranger who saved him with that arrow shot. He turned around to thank his savior, but he's shocked. Instead of seeing the dwarf that he expected, he sees a beautiful-looking woman with some strange-looking ears. Those ears mean she's actually an elf. He bows his head and thanks her for saving him, but doesn't notice the elf rushing at him while his head is down. He only gets a second to see her before she grabs him by the collar and pulls him close for an interrogation. She hasn't seen him in this dungeon before. She's curious about who he is and where he came from. The elf clearly isn't from Jinhyuk's world. She doesn't know where he's from, and his outfit looks unfamiliar. She asks him a barrage of questions while he struggles to free himself from her grip. She eventually lets him go after he mentions that he entered the dungeon today. That means that he knows where the dungeon entrance is. She pushes him on the ground and drops her bow. She has finally found a way out of this dungeon. Jinhyuk stands up and demands to know what's going on with her being needlessly aggressive. The elf ignores him and instead demands that he take her to the exit. He's not impressed by her just giving him orders out of nowhere. She's really pretty though, so he'll let it slide for now. She mentions that if he successfully guides her out of the dungeon, then she will adequately compensate him. After all, she's a platinum-ranked mercenary, so he can trust her. Her name is Lucia, and she's a half-elf who prides herself on being pretty famous. Surely he had heard of her from somewhere. Jinhyuk, though, has no idea what she's talking about or who she is. She repeats that she's a platinum-ranked mercenary and shows him her badge, but he still has never seen or heard of any of these things before. Did he come from some kind of rural area? How does he not know what the badge is or who she is? He tells her that he's from Seoul, Korea. It's her turn to be confused by the names he's calling, and she realizes that the crazy mage might have actually succeeded in his dimension-hopping spell. She tells him of her suspicions. In simple words, a mage from her dimension cast a spell on this dungeon. That spell caused it to hop over into his. Something like that doesn't sound possible at all, but it appears that this is exactly what happened. However, since it was a dimensional shift, that means reversing the magic will allow her to return to her world. Jinhyuk had felt that something was odd, but it turns out that this dungeon isn't even from this world. If this place returns to its original location, that could be a big problem for him. He asks her if she plans to send the dungeon back right now, but she can't. It would be too difficult to reverse the magic here, but there's a potential location that would be helpful. It's a hidden room on this floor that she found a long while ago while searching for an exit. She asks for his help getting there and promises to reward him for his help in getting there. The conditions don't seem too bad, so he agrees to help her reach the hidden room. They head there and fight a few orcs on the way. Jinhyuk notices that she's a lot stronger than he thought she'd be. That arrow she fired earlier was also no joke. Fighting her here would be a disadvantage for him. His safest bet would be to cooperate with her and continue to assess the situation. After a little more walking, they decide to rest at a safe spot. Jinhyuk had packed some chocolates in his pockets for emergencies, and he handed her one to eat. She takes a liking to it immediately and demands more. And after eating through his whole supply, she asks for even more. That was unfortunately the last one, and she accepts and seems satisfied enough to continue the journey. Eventually, they reach a large room that holds the boss of the dungeon. Lucia believes that there's a chance for the mage's spell to be in that room. To investigate, they'll need to take down the boss and free up the room. She tells him that he doesn't have to do much of anything. All he has to do is help her finish it off once she takes it down. They open the door, and the monster immediately lets out an angry roar before attacking. Lucia charges up an arrow and aims straight at the boss's chest. She tells Jinhyuk to watch her closely. Then she uses a technique called aura to increase the impact of her attack. She fires the arrow, and it hits the boss head-on, knocking it on its back immediately. Just one of her attacks was enough to bring it down, despite how huge the armored monster was. This is the technique she's going to teach him, but first, he has to finish up the monster before it gets up again. Just like with the golems, he has to aim for the core to take it out. He jumps onto the fallen creature's chest and bashes his bat right into where he believes the core should be. One hit doesn't seem to be enough to bring it down, though. A large fist rushes at him from the side. He narrowly blocks it with one of his cleric skills, the Holy Shield. Then, he uses his momentum to push himself back onto its chest. If one hit isn't enough to bring it down, then he'll just keep bashing it until it stops moving. Eventually, he busts the core open, and the creature is finally defeated. He levels up again, almost reaching 200 at this point. Now that the creature is defeated, he returns to Lucia and asks her to teach him how to use aura. But he already used aura. His shield skill transformed his holy cleric power into aura. To him, it was just a class skill, but she doesn't know what that is. Besides that, if he can use skills like that, then it seems he will be able to learn how to use aura faster than she thought. Since he has the potential to wield it well, that means that he might even be able to start enhancing his attacks with aura right away. But first, there's a condition. She sends it back to get more chocolates for her. Back in the city, Sango walks alongside his secretary, Lee Hyena, and discusses a new anomaly that appeared near Gangnam Station. It was detected yesterday, meaning that they have about 5 days to prepare before a powerful monster appears there. No matter how Sango pictures it, there's no way his guild is going to be able to take it on by themselves. However, all the other major guilds have been dispatched overseas, meaning that the Titan Guild is the only one left in Korea to fight. Hyena will continue searching for capable hunters who are freelancing locally, but none of them seem reliable. Sango, however, already has his sights set on someone else. In fact, coincidentally, that person just happened to be crossing the other side of the street. He excuses himself from his conversation with his secretary and chases after Jinhyuk. He's carrying home a large box of snacks that the elf asked him to get when the guild master's voice catches his attention. He offers his proposal to join Titan Guild once more, but Jinhyuk doesn't have any plans of changing his mind. In that case, Sango offers Jinhyuk a job as a mercenary. That way, he can still work for the guild, but he won't be a part of it. The rewards are also substantial. That sounds more interesting, but Jinhyuk promises to only think about it. He returns to the dungeon and presents the snacks to the elf. She happily eats them all, and it's obvious that they don't have this kind of food in her world. After her hearty meal, Jinhyuk asks her why she's eating down in the basement when they have already defeated the boss monster. She points up at a magic circle on the ceiling and tells him that it connects the dungeon to the world he lives in. Because of it, she'll be staying down there for the time being to study it. So if he wants to learn more about aura, he's going to need to bring her more chocolates. Now that she is done eating, she takes his hand to teach him how to use aura. Firstly, she will have to pour her aura into his body to show him what it feels like. Jinhyuk immediately feels the power flowing into him. Lucia also notices the spike of power in his body after she poured in her aura. He seems to have more talent for it than she initially expected. The movement of holy power flowing through his body is impressive enough that she believes he will be able to grasp the basics by the end of the day. She commends him for his talent and asks him if he can remember the flow of aura in his body. He's confident that he can, and she acknowledges him before turning to leave the dungeon. She was supposed to investigate the magic circle first, but it seemed like it would be faster to fully train him on how to use aura, and the best way to do that is through practical experience. She takes him to a different part of the dungeon and throws him into a horde of monsters. He fights an army of goblins and kobolds at once, but manages to hold his own against them while collecting their corpses as well. He turns to Lucia and asks her why he suddenly has to fight a horde of monsters when she told him that he would be learning how to use aura. She tells him that this is how he will learn how to use aura. Even though she infused a bit of mana into his body so he could get a feel of it, he's going to have to sense the rest on his own. To do that, all he has to do is get the hang of activating aura using his holy power, and there's no better way to get the instinct for it than in the middle of real combat. He's more upset that she didn't tell him any of that, and instead just threw him into the action with no warning. While they're fighting, the ground starts to shake, and a stone golem emerges from the ground. It lets out a loud roar and pushes Jinhyuk away. Lucia continues to explain that he needs to face a true crisis to unlock his potential. All he has to do is focus and try to feel the holy power coming from the shield he generates with his skill. The shield is made out of aura, so once he gets the hang of it, he'll be able to pick it up quickly. That's easier said than done since he doesn't consciously activate the holy shield. How is he supposed to feel any aura from something that turns on automatically? The monster brings down a huge fist toward Jinhyuk, and he blocks it with the holy shield once again, but this time he feels something. It's some kind of energy gathering around his left hand, which was the hand that's activating the skill. This must be what holy power feels like. The monster peels back and attacks again. Jinhyuk summons his holy shield again, except this time it has a different shape than what he remembers. The sensation of summoning the shield is also different. This must be mana. The golem doesn't give him time to figure all this out and smashes down on the shield, sending Jinhyuk flying back. Lucia mocks him from her podium. She told him to get the hang of his skill, not to make foolish mistakes. He was just doing what she told him to, though. As he prepares for another attack, a status window appears in front of him. He has acquired a new skill called Holy Power Application. This skill allows him to use Holy Power and to use the energy to enhance his attack and defense, based on how much Holy Power is used. This means that there are ways to gain skills beyond getting a job change. Lucia notices him spacing out and decides to take matters in her own hands. It seems that facing a golem while learning aura is too much for him, so she offers to take care of it. Jinhyuk, on the other hand, quickly recovers himself and tells her to stand down. Now that he has a grasp on his new powers, he should be able to handle everything. He charges at the golem and then leaps off the ground, narrowly dodging another stone fist aiming right at him. Then, while in the air, he focuses his man on the bat. He then uses a front flip to gain more momentum before bringing the mana-enhanced bat down onto the golem's head. The monster falls, but he's not satisfied yet. He lands on its chest and focuses, trying to divert even more mana into his bat before bringing it down right onto the golem's chest, unlocking a new skill at the same time called Holy Aura. With his enhanced weapon, he stabs the golem with his bat and successfully breaks the core. By unlocking his Holy Aura, it also allowed him to gain new skills like Precision Strike and Unyielding. Thanks to Lucia's training, he was able to unlock 2 passive skills and an active skill. She, however, is more concerned about the fact that he learned how to use aura in battle so quickly. She was expecting to just teach him the basics and call it a day, but with this, she has to see things to the end. She takes one of her arrows and brings down a wall, opening up the area to an even larger horde of monsters. Jinhyuk is not impressed, but he readies his bat and prepares for another battle. The battle with the monsters in the dungeon takes a lot out of him, and by the time he goes to sell the monster corpses, he's exhausted. He's so tired that the black market boss, Jun Cheol, notices when they meet. He looks like he has just been through a war. Jun Cheol decides not to ask too many questions and gets down to business by accepting the monster corpses. He also brings up the topic of the alcohol. He sold it to them last time. He marketed it as traditional artisan soju. Since it went on the market, orders have been flooding in. The drink became popular in such a short time. He could focus on selling liquor and never have to worry about money again. He would have enough money to last him for the rest of his life, and he already has a small business set up. Jinhyuk heads home to rest. His training with Lucia has left him immensely tired. Only seconds after laying down in bed, he passes out immediately. Not long after, he's woken up by the sound of a disaster alert. A loud, automated voice urges everyone on the street to evacuate and get to safety. Today is already the day of the monster invasion. It seems to have come early this month. Monster invasions usually happen randomly, but there's a certain invasion that happens after a set period of 1 month. This invasion is pretty common. Usually, Jinhyuk would use this opportunity to catch some low-level monsters for some loose change. This time, though, he's too tired to care. The large guilds will take care of them anyway, so he shouldn't have to move a finger. At least, that was the plan, until a notification came in on his phone, informing him that due to the urgency of the invasion, the reward for monsters would be tripled. With triple the rewards up for grabs, Jinhyuk can't ignore the invasion anymore. He steps out onto the street to see if he can take some down and cash in. Meanwhile, security officials guide people and try to clear the streets, while the Titan Guild battles hordes of monsters running through the city. The security line is already breaking due to the number of monsters trying to get through, and Sango is running out of stamina to keep up the fight. No matter how many he takes down, more just keep popping up. The guild members are already at their limits, and even though it looks like they have the upper hand, things aren't looking too promising. The guild's secretary watches the fight worriedly from behind safety. Even though it looks like everything is going well, thanks to the guild master, she can tell that they're getting stretched thin. If only they had one more powerful hunter to turn the tide. Her mind wanders to a man that the guild master had found promising not too long ago. She takes her phone and calls Hook. He's in the middle of fighting some goblins when he picks up. She offers him a chance to fight with the Titan Guild, and in return, he will get heavily compensated. He asks for 5 times the normal compensation, and she suggests they meet at a predetermined place to discuss more. When they meet, she offers him 4 times the compensation instead. He reluctantly agrees. She gives him a device. It will keep track of how many monsters he kills, so they can monitor his contribution to the guild. If his contribution is more than average, he will get everything he's asking for. Now that he has a chance to show off his abilities and get proper payment, he takes off toward the fight to provide help. Hyena watches him leave, reluctantly. She wonders if he will live up to Sango's expectations. He was once able to take down Doyen by pure luck, but his skills are still uncertain. He arrives on the battlefield. Immediately, he goes after a rampaging ogre, which shocks the crowd. He manages to kill it in one quick strike. This makes everyone think that he has to be at least an A-rank hunter. A-rank is close, but Jinhyuk believes that with his current abilities, he has to be stronger than an A-rank. He takes a moment to drink a mana potion and recharge. Thanks to Lucia's intense training, he has managed to reach level 200. Normally, he wouldn't be able to face an ogre, but as long as his mana doesn't run out, he should be able to keep up with an S-rank hunter. Right now, he has over 1,500 mana potions, which means that all the monsters around him are nothing but money makers. Elsewhere, Doyen takes down monsters alongside his guild members. He notices that the number of monsters is decreasing dramatically. He turns to see a group watching someone take down monsters with ease. He checks to see who it is. It's the one person he hates the most right now. He yells orders to the stunned hunters and tells them to stop daydreaming and go back to fighting monsters. Why was this guy here? Who invited him? Just seeing Jinhyuk reminds him of their last encounter and how his embarrassing moment was broadcast all over the news. That last time must have been due to lots of luck. This time, since he's alone, there'd be no problem taking him out and putting him in his place. With that in mind, he rushes towards Jinhyuk, hoping to fix his nasty habit of being at the worst place at the wrong time. Unluckily for him, the C-rank hunter notices him far too early and manages to counter his attack, sending Doyen flying and knocking him out yet again. He's too busy to entertain this random, crazy guy. Meanwhile, Sango stares down a rampaging minotaur. His mana is almost gone, and he's out of stamina. The minotaur raises its club to attack. Sango entertains the idea of retreating and regaining his stamina. But before the club can hit him, a voice calls out from behind. Jinhyuk jumps in from above. He grabs the minotaur by the horns and slams it into the ground. For a C-rank hunter to take down a minotaur in one hit, it looks like Sango's judgment about Jinhyuk was right on track. As he takes down the monster, Sango approaches him to show his appreciation for the help. Jinhyuk tells him that the guild master called him and promised a hefty pay in return for his help. So, there was no need to thank him. Sango then takes this chance to once again ask him to join their guild. If you join forces with us, then opportunities like this will keep popping up. Jinhyuk takes a moment to consider it. Then, he tells him that once they finish up the remaining monsters, he'll think about it. As they're talking, Sango gets a call from Hyena. She tells him to look at the sky. The clouds had turned black, and the weather had become fiery with lightning. Something huge and menacing was lurking in the clouds, and it did not look friendly. It shoots lightning down at everything, both monsters and hunters, and damages buildings as it flies around. It's so high in the sky that there's no way their skills will be able to reach it. That means that there could be no way to attack it. Sango suggests going back to his guild to assess the situation and invites Jinhyuk to join him. He reluctantly agrees, and together they meet back at his office. From there, they run different tests and see that nothing they've done so far has been able to affect it or defend against its attacks. Everything they've done so far to stop it has been nullified or destroyed. They need to find something with a huge amount of firepower that can also destroy things from a long range. Lucia immediately comes to mind, and he realizes that there might be a way to bring it down after all. As Jinhyuk leaves to get Lucia, the executives of the Titan Guild come together to talk about how much favoritism Sango is giving to a C-ranker. The other guild members try to think of other ways to bring the monster down without relying on Jinhyuk. But there's just no other choice in the matter. All other methods are guaranteed to fail. So, the only option left is to trust in the only hunter with an idea. They could call another guild named Guddia, which is a large guild filled with A ranks and higher mages. Unfortunately, those guys don't care about casualties, and calling them will surely result in many deaths. The other members in the room fall silent after they realize that they really don't have any other choice but to wait. Back at the apartment, Jinhyuk comes out of the portal with Lucia. He thanks her for agreeing to help and promises her as many sweet treats from his world as she could want as a reward. Together, they head to the top of the Titan Guild headquarters. Jinhyuk shows her the monster that's terrorizing their city. He asks her if she'll be able to take it down, and she's certain that she can. The thing is so big that she can hit it with her eyes closed. The monster is level 300, which is the highest level monster that has ever been recorded. She assures him that she can take it out, but first, she's going to need a little help. The building's roof is too fragile to handle her power, and she needs him to prepare a shield to absorb most of the impact if he doesn't want to see multiple buildings destroyed. With things properly set up, Jin-hyuk calls the guild leader and asks about the potential damage to the area once they take down the monster. The damage to buildings will be unavoidable, Sango tells him. Don't worry about all that, and only focus on bringing down the monster. With that settled, Jin-hyuk prepares a shield while Lucia charges up 2 arrows to take down the beast. She aims carefully, then releases the shots, which causes a massive shockwave that pushes Jin-hyuk back, even with the shield. The 2 shots race through the sky towards the monster, and in just a second, they land a direct hit on the beast, taking it out in one shot. The damage is so massive that half its body is disintegrated from the impact. The Titan Guild watches from the ground, amazed that he managed to pull it off so easily. Hunter Kong Jin-hyuk just continues to amaze people. The whiplash from Lucia's attack was enough to leave smoking trail marks on the building's helipad. It may not have been the time to hold back, but this was way too much. Lucia, on the other hand, is more disappointed that the monster was so weak. It wasn't like that at all. It's more like Lucia is just way too strong for any monster that pops up in this world. Regardless, the job is done, and it's time for her to head back. She passes him the tracker that keeps track of his points, and the reading was a massive 240 points. With that, she turns to leave, but not before leaving him with a warning. Don't place too much trust in other people. When there's a lot at stake, people's minds tend to cloud with the hope of money. It would be better not to allow himself to be deceived, as she has been on her many adventures. Jin-hyuk assures her that he'll be fine. If he notices anything wrong, he'll make sure to take care of it. They part ways, and Jin-hyuk heads down to the street, where he's found by Sango and his secretary. They catch up with him and ask him how he managed to take such a huge monster down by himself. He politely declines telling them and says that it's a secret. One of the executives with him takes offense at that. He doesn't believe that a mere C rank can take down such a huge beast. But Jin-hyuk shows them the monster tracker, which has a massive amount of points. This shows that he really was the one who brought it down. Sango stops him there and apologizes to Jin-hyuk for the outburst. The executive watches them in anger. It seems that Sango loves to side with a C rank more than his own guild members. In that case, it is time to find a change because Sango keeps standing in the way of the guild's future. He takes out his phone and places a call to an unknown number. By the next day, the rumor had spread all over the city that the giant monster was taken down by an ordinary C rank. The members of the Titan Guild don't believe it, but it's not that hard to verify. Word had even gotten around that the guild master personally offered him a direct entry into the Titan Guild, but he turned it down. He must be really confident in his skills to turn down such a huge offer from Sango himself. The rumors had even managed to reach members of the Ultron Guild, who had also received information that Doyen had been hospitalized after the events of the monster invasion. He was known for his impressive skills, but information reveals that he was taken down by the rumored C rank hunter. If that is true, then the rumors had some truth to them. The Ultron Guild scouts decide to meet with Jin-hyuk themselves and verify the information. He might have unlocked a hidden class, which was exceptionally rare for hunters to do. If that's the case, they had to recruit him into their guild first before another guild took him, or they would eliminate him. Jin-hyuk, on the other hand, slept soundly after the battle. He had used up all of his stamina during the fight and passed out as soon as he got the chance. He woke up after 2 days of dead sleep and realized that this was the backlash from overusing his stamina. He walks out into his living room and finds that Lucia had made a huge mess with all the snacks that he bought her. She had managed to eat everything in just 2 days. She had no choice, though, since there was no food left in the fridge and all he had available to eat were those snacks. She also couldn't go back to the dungeon since he hadn't opened the portal for her. That confuses Jin-hyuk, since he has never needed to open it before. It's always open as far as he knows. He goes to his attic to show her that the portal was open even right then. That didn't make sense to her, since just a moment ago, there was nothing there. She tells him to step away from the door, then reopens it, and sure enough, there's nothing there now that he has stepped back. Jin-hyuk has no idea what's going on, since he has only ever seen the dungeon open. Lucia has a theory. The dungeon reacts only to him. Wherever he goes, the dungeon follows. It seems like the dungeon is imprinted directly on him. This means there was a chance the dungeon could have fallen directly on his head. Luckily, it was a failed spell. He decides not to think about that, and instead orders some food for the both of them. She wonders how he even found his way back to the house after they defeated the monster. She placed a recognition suppression spell on it, which should have made it impossible to find. Jin-hyuk asks her why she would place something like that on his house. She explains that while he was sleeping, some strange people kept coming by. They were from some guilds named Ultron and Guardian. They were so annoying that she made it so they could never come at all. Jin-hyuk is confused as to why those large guilds would be looking for him. He pulls out his phone to find out just what had happened while he was asleep. The first headline he sees catches his attention immediately. News of him defeating the new giant monster had spread around the internet. There was even a video circulating around that clearly showed him fighting along with the Titan Guild. It seems that he became famous overnight. This is going to be a problem. It seems like he got too greedy, and taking advantage of Lucia's power had put him under a spotlight. The hunter industry is territorial, and whenever they see a strong competitor, they try to take them out as soon as possible. He decides not to dwell on the past. With Lucia done eating, they head back into the dungeon to take their loot to the dwarf. Thanks to Lucia's powerful shot, the body was too weak to use, and they were only able to recover the head. The old man is frustrated at the elf for overdoing it and ruining valuable material. It seems like he and Lucia have a natural hatred towards each other. Jin-hyuk cuts in during their argument and asks the dwarf if he can make something out of the corpse. He takes a moment and digs something out of the head. It's the organ that allowed it to produce lightning. With that, he can enchant the baseball bat to produce lightning as well. Jin-hyuk asks him how he'd like to be paid, but all he wants is for the elf to get out of his workshop. Lucia starts shaking with anger, and Jin-hyuk has to calm her down by promising to give her more sweets. After just barely stopping her from shooting a hole straight through the dwarf's head, he heads back into the city to buy her promised sweets. On his way back home, he senses something in an alleyway. It seems like someone is tracking him. He drops his groceries behind a wall and calls out to the creep following him. A voice answers back, surprised that Jin-hyuk noticed him at all. Suddenly, a figure appears out of nowhere and rushes at him with a swing of his sword. Jin-hyuk barely manages to block the attack with his bat. The newcomer is surprised that Jin-hyuk could even see him. This confirms that the rumors were true. Jin-hyuk really is more than just an ordinary C rank. Jin-hyuk pushes him back, then leaps at him with another attack from his bat. Since he doesn't want to reveal who he is, he's just going to have to get beat up until he feels like talking. Since the attacker can't fight head-on, he uses a skill to turn himself invisible again, deciding to change tactics. Jin-hyuk can faintly feel his presence, but he can't see him. The slight sense he has is just enough to tell when he's going to attack, though. He manages to dodge and block most of the attacks that are thrown at him, but at this rate, things won't go well for him for much longer. If he had his usual bat, he could track him more easily, but the old dwarf is working on it, which means he had to switch to a regular aluminum bat instead. He can't stay here for much longer. With no other means of fighting, Jin-hyuk makes a run for it, but not before the hooded attacker attaches a tracking device to his shirt. Jin-hyuk makes his way to a crowded area to hide, but the attacker's tracking device allows him to continue monitoring wherever he goes. The trail leads to a bathroom in a department store, and he follows it, camouflaging himself in the meantime. He stops in front of the stall that the tracker led him to and kicks it open, prepared to attack. Except, there's nothing there but the tracker stuck to the wall. It was a trap. He realized that much too late, as Jin-hyuk rushes behind him with his bat raised high. Swinging in this confined space, disappearing won't save him. He barely evades the attack and counters with a knife swing to Jin-hyuk's face that is easily dodged. Jin-hyuk grabs the attacker's hand before slamming him into the ground. With nowhere left to run and the wind knocked out of him, Jin-hyuk raises his bat. He prepares to swing one last time and smash his head in if he doesn't spill who sent him on this chase. Meanwhile, outside, a boy wants to use the toilets. There's a sign forbidding entry, but he just can't hold it anymore. His dad reluctantly lets him run right as the assassin is about to confess. That's all the opportunity that he needs. The assassin charges up a fireball and sends it straight at Jin-hyuk and the child, forcing him to put up a shield and save them both. The assassin uses the smoke as an escape to run while he still can. The higher-ups only told him to get some information from him. He didn't expect things to be this troublesome. As he tries to run, an object stabs right through his chest, killing him instantly. Jin-hyuk stands behind him, trying to catch his breath. It seems like he used too much force and accidentally killed him. As he's lamenting the situation, a status window pops up in front of him. It acknowledges the murder, but labels it as self-defense. Because of this, the villain trait will not be given, and instead, a hidden job change has become available. Not long after the incident, police arrive to secure the area. Jin-hyuk sits solemnly on a bench and thinks about what just happened. Normally, when a hunter kills a person, they receive the title of villain. Clerics especially suffer a penalty where their skills are sealed off if they acquire the title. He originally thought that was what was going to happen to him. But since it was self-defense, he just barely managed to escape that fate. He definitely didn't expect a class change of all things to come of it. Two detectives approach him while he's thinking about the situation. They ask him questions related to the incident, and he tries his best to cooperate. Luckily for him, since he didn't receive the villain trait, the detectives don't suspect him of foul play. It confirms that he was just acting on self-defense, and they decide to let him go. However, before he can leave, they tell him that he can't tell anyone about the situation with the villain status. It could cause issues for them later on if the wrong people find out that you can kill without immediate consequences. To counter that, they give him a device that will monitor him and alert them if he says any words related to the case, including the words murder, self-defense, and villain. With that, they let him go and told him to leave the cleanup to them. Since this must be a huge shock to his system, they advise him to go home and get some rest. As he leaves, the detectives talk among themselves. There's no way that Jin-hyuk is just a C-rank hunter. He managed to block a powerful attack from a mage while protecting a child. On top of that, he captured and killed a high-level hunter. At this point, it's more than just a rumor. Hopefully, he doesn't do anything to lose their trust. Jin-hyuk heads home and checks out his new class. It's called the Inquisitor class, and it seems to have powers that build off his cleric abilities. The skills he developed seem to be more self-focused than the others. They allow him to fight and act like a tank while constantly healing himself. It also gives him a high resistance to status effects like stun and poison. With upgrades like this, he becomes an even more powerful solo hunter. Another thing is he now has the ability to see the karma of others. He gains power boosts based off of how high another person's karma is, thanks to the judgment skill. It's like this class openly pushes him to attack bad guys. Now that he has confirmed the capabilities of this new class, he returns to the dwarf's workshop to check on his new weapon. As promised, the weapon has been enchanted to send out lightning attacks. All he has to do is think of the attack, and it sends out up to 3 charged lightning attacks. However, each charge takes up to 30 minutes to recover. Lucia is less focused on that, and more focused on the fact that she can no longer sense holy power from Jin-hyuk. He must have done something in the human world that changed his status. He tells them that he can't tell them because of a device that monitors his words. The dwarf offers to dispose of the device if he does a simple task for him. He gives Jin-hyuk a compass that is meant to guide him to somewhere dangerous to retrieve an item. He may be a rookie, but he should be able to handle the dangers of what's to come. That's all for today. For the next part, make sure to subscribe my channel Fire Recap. And you don't forget to share and like the video. I am out.